if it's, we'll do it.
Okay, we're good.
Good morning. I'm Kurt Anderson, Interim Administrative Director of the Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency. I will conduct today's public hearing and record the minutes of the hearing. Today, we're joined by board members Deborah Dawson, the chair, Jerry Dietz, Hannah Smith. Didn't see anyone online, so. This hearing is being held pursuant to a public notice published in the Ithaca Journal on July 16th, 2026, in accordance with Article 18A of the General Municipal Law. Purpose of this hearing is to afford the general public an opportunity to make statements and comments on the request by Beacon Communities, LLC for financial assistance from the Tompkins County IDA. The Beacon project consists of new construction of 230 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments for households ranging between 50 and 80% area median income. This project will span 10 buildings, 2 buildings totaling 100 apartments in the city of Ithaca, and 8 buildings totaling 130 apartments in the town of Ithaca. This project is financed by a New York State Homes and Community Renewal, HCR, using 4% low-income housing tax credit, tax-exempt bond financing, state low-income housing tax credits, and housing finance agency subsidies. This project will be subject to and governed by a 30-year New York State HCR regulatory agreement. Other sources include equity, a first mortgage, short-term bonds, a construction loan, and a deferred developer fee. The financial assistance contemplated by the IDA will consist generally of exemption from property taxes that will be offset in part by contractual payments in lieu of taxes or pilot payments by the company for the benefit of the affected taxing jurisdictions. It also includes exemption from the state share of the mortgage recording tax and exemption from local and state sales and use taxes. Comments presented at this hearing will be taken into consideration by the Tompkins County IDA Board as part of its consideration of the full application. This hearing will remain open until all submitted comments and members of the public who are present at the hearing and wish to speak have been given the opportunity to do so. If you do wish to speak, please sign the speakers list. Those speaking will have 3 minutes to provide comment, and I will have a timer running. I will ask each speaker to sit at the table so that the microphone can pick up your sound. Please state your name, address, and make your comment. And if you are appearing as a representative of an organization or governmental entity, please identify that organization or entity and state its address as well. If you wish to submit a copy of your comment for the record, you may hand them to us. Otherwise, we will glean it from the recording. Finally, I want to remind you that for the purposes of this hearing, that the purpose of this hearing is to afford you an opportunity to make comments about the request for financial incentives from the Tompkins County IDA. This is not a question and answer session. Before we ask the first speaker to come to the front of the room, we have several written comments that myself and my colleagues will read to you for a matter of public record. In order of receipt, a gentleman by the name of Vin Lee. Dear members of the Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency, I'm writing to strongly oppose the proposed 30-year tax abatement for the Southworks housing development. While I support affordable housing, I do not support granting decades of tax breaks based on speculation and assumptions. If the financial impact on the Ithaca City School District and taxpayers is unknown, the answer should not be to spend additional taxpayer money on yet another study. The burden should be on the developer to demonstrate that this project will not harm local schools and taxpayers. At this point, there is insufficient justification for providing such an extraordinary tax benefit. Tax abatements shift costs onto everyone else. Residents and businesses continue paying property taxes while the developer receives a substantial reduction for 30 years. If the project cannot move forward without such a large public subsidy, the public deserves a clear explanation why. ICSD is already facing significant financial challenges. Approving a long-term abatement without knowing whether school revenues will cover the costs of serving additional students creates unnecessary risk for taxpayers. Families, seniors, and homeowners should not be expected to absorb higher taxes or reduce services to offset a private developer's tax break. I urge the IDA to reject this 30-year tax abatement proposal. If the IDA chooses to consider any abatement, it should be limited to the standard terms available to comparable nonprofit affordable housing developments, not a special agreement that places additional burden on taxpayers. Affordable housing is important, but so are fiscal responsibility, tax fairness, and protecting public schools. The public should not be asked to subsidize a project of this scale without compelling evidence that the benefits outweigh the costs. Thank you for your consideration.
Good morning, everyone. This public comment comes from Teresa Alt of the City of Ithaca to the board and staff of Tompkins County Industrial Agency. I am neither saying do nor don't to the request of Beacon Communities for a major tax abatement. Rather, I have questions. Have you done due diligence in verifying the claims of Beacon Communities as to their excellent reputation? Why do we now get this new request for a major tax abatement when the whole Southwark project already got one? Should this one be limited to the additional workforce housing units beyond the number of originally projected? Is there an estimate of the number of new children who will attend South Hill Elementary School, a junior high, and the high school? Should the abatement be limited to the years of construction, but for the school taxes and when the families move in and the children actually add to the expenses of the schools? Should the abatement be similar to those previously granted in Ithaca Neighborhood Housing Services, not for bigger? It has already been argued that schools in the county need to be represented on the IDA, but this has not happened yet.
Good morning. I'm reading this for Rebecca Stevenson. Hello, I'm writing to express my concern for the long-term financial impact of the proposed Southwark projects and the tax abatement request on our schools. As a concerned ITA member, I would like to clarify my position. We support the creation of high-quality, affordable housing at Southworks and want the project and its future residents to thrive. A 30-year tax abatement should not be approved without a clear understanding of its long-term impact on ICSD and neighboring school districts. The application does not estimate the number of students the development may bring into ICSD or the educational resources they may require. The application does not show ICSD's annual or cumulative revenue under the proposed pilot. State aid does not necessarily increase by the amount ICSD will need to educate additional students. The IDA should delay its decision and study the school impact. If it will not delay, limit the abatement to the standard terms available to a comparable nonprofit affordable housing development such as INHS. And then she repeats this. So please delay the Southworks pilot decision until its likely long-term impact on ICSD and neighboring school districts has been studied publicly. If the IDA will not delay, limit the abatement to the standard terms available to a comparable non-for-profit affordable housing development such as INHS. Thank you very much, Rebecca Stevenson.
This is from Kristen Herman. Hello. Please delay the Southworks pilot decision until its likely long-term impact on ICSD and neighboring school districts has been studied publicly. If the IDA will not delay, limit the abatement to the standard terms available to a comparable nonprofit affordable housing development such as INHS. I am a teacher in the ICSD and a taxpayer in the city of Ithaca. I want to support all students as our community grows and ensure our budget is sustained through this growth without passing the cost on to me as a taxpayer. Thank you.
This is from Louisa Smiska. To whom it may concern, I am extremely concerned to hear about the proposed 30-year tax abatement for the Southworks housing project. This is an extraordinary request, given that typical property tax abatements for similar projects are on the order of 7 to 10 years. I agree that there is a strong need for affordable housing in the community, but entering into a tax abatement agreement that will impact the taxpayers and therefore city services for decades should not be done lightly. I support the ITA's request to delay the IDA's decision on this proposal until impacts on the Ithaca and surrounding school districts can be fully studied. The current proposal does not include enough detail to make a fully informed decision. If the decision cannot be delayed, I would strongly support limiting the terms of a tax abatement to the standard 7 to 10 years available to comparable projects. The potential for exploitation and mismanagement under a 30-year abatement is just way too high.
This message is from Rhoda Maurer. As a resident of the city of Ithaca, I'm concerned about the unsustainable system currently in place to assist with affordable housing in the city. From my current understanding, taxes are often waived and or abated for an agreed amount of time for these developments, but the increase in operational costs for the increased number of children going to city schools and services provided by the city is burdened on existing tax-paying residents. I'm not against paying a fair level of taxes in the city or school district for services that support the well-being of our community. But I also believe this reliance on existing homeowners is not solving the systemic problem, only widening the gap between those who can afford to live in the city and those who cannot. The city and school districts should be looking at the totality of our tax system and finding new ways to transition the burden of new developments away from existing and future residents. At a very minimum, the Southworks project and any other new development projects need a full study before any agreements are made.
Oh, you don't have,
Well,
Here, you want this one?
I'll take it.
Sure.
This one is from Todd Kurzweil. Must delay Southworks public hearing. Totally opposed to giving Southworks any abatement and or additional financial assistance to make this project move forward. TCIDA vote no on Southworks. Todd Kurzweil.
I guess I'm next. This one is from Caitlin Egger. It's very long. To the members of the Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency, I'm writing as a Tompkins County property owner, an Ithaca City School District taxpayer, and the parent of a child enrolled in the Ithaca City School District. I'm deeply concerned that the proposed tax abatement for the Beacon Community's Southworks development places an unfair and unsustainable burden on our public schools. From the information presented publicly at the school board meeting, the tax abatement proposal appears to differ significantly from the standard tax abatement structures used for affordable housing developments. Rather than relying on a traditional assessed value approach, the developer is requesting a 30-year pilot based on a percentage of the project's first-year net operating income, NOI, with annual increases limited to just 2%. As a taxpayer, I find this troubling for several reasons. First, the proposed payment structure appears to tie future tax payments to financial assumptions made during the first year of operation, rather than to the property's assessed value. Unlike property assessments, which are conducted through an independent public process, first-year NOI is largely determined by the developer's operating decisions, creating a conflict of interest. If the initial NOI is understated or intentionally manipulated, taxpayers could be locked into decades of artificially low tax payments. Second, the proposed 2% annual increase does not reflect the reality of educational cost projections. If this development generates additional students, parentheses, the school board estimated between 50 and 150 additional students in this phase of the project alone, close paren, the school district will face higher costs for teachers, classrooms, transportation, special education services, and other essential programs. From what I understood in the Board of Education meeting, the district's back of the envelope estimate is the project will generate between 1.5 and 4 million in annual costs to ICSD in 2026 dollars. These costs would not be limited to 2% annual increases. I feel it is unreasonable to expect ICSD to educate additional students without receiving sufficient revenue to support them. The impact of this financing structure would trickle down negatively into large class sizes, delayed school building maintenance, and reductions in programming. Eventually, the shortfall will have to be addressed, And historically, the burden has been on property owners such as myself in the form of increased taxes. None of those outcomes serves our community well. I am also concerned about the precedent this proposal could establish. The Southwark project is a planned multi-phase redevelopment that will ultimately include many, possibly 800, additional residential units in future phases. If this tax abatement is approved for the first phase, it seems likely that similar requests will follow. The cumulative financial impact on the school district could become substantial, possibly destabilizing. I'm not asking the IDA to reject affordable housing or redevelopment. Rather, I respectfully ask that you ensure any tax abatement is both transparent and fiscally responsible, and at minimum should cover the additional costs expected to the public education system. Before approving this proposal, I urge the IDA to require an independent analysis of the anticipated fiscal impact on the Ithaca City School District. A comparison between the proposed NOI-based pilot and a conventional assessed value-based pilot used for comparable affordable housing projects, a clear explanation of why this project requires a tax structure that differs from established affordable housing financing practices, and a payment structure that more appropriately reflects the long-term cost of educating students who will live in the development. Our community needs affordable housing, but we also need strong schools. These goals should not be viewed as competing priorities. We should strive for development that supports both. As someone who contributes to our schools through property taxes and entrusts my child's education to the Ithaca City School District, I ask that you carefully consider the long-term consequences of this proposal before establishing what could become a precedent for future developments. Thank you for your time, your service, and your thoughtful considerations.
Thank you all. One final comment before we invite the first speaker up, and that is that the Ithaca City School District did submit a letter. The School Board of Education submitted a letter to the IDA. It will not be read today, but it will be included as part of the August 12th agenda packet. So it will be available online publicly. And I understand they have also sent it out to a listserv. So that said, our first speaker is Catherine C.
Sonera.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Catherine Cernera. I am a resident of Spencer, but I am here today speaking on behalf of the Ithaca Teachers Association. I am the president of that association. The Ithaca Teachers Association, or the ITA, is a union of nearly 600 professional educators in the Ithaca City School District. We serve as classroom teachers, subject area specialists, academic support teachers, speech and occupational therapists, school counselors, social workers, and psychologists. We work with students in grades pre-K through 12 and support students across 12 school buildings and in numerous private schools in and around Ithaca. The ITA exists to prepare, organize, support, and advocate for educators so that we are better able to advocate for the needs of our students and effectively provide a safe and supportive learning environment for all. As we all know, Ithaca has a need for the development of safe, affordable housing for our working families. And the prospect of a major project that could bring this type of housing to Ithaca is something to be excited about. As a union, we support projects that help provide our students and their families with housing. And I'm here today to urge the IDA to strongly consider the impact that the tax abatements the developers of the Southwark project are requesting would have on our schools and our community as a whole before making any decision about this project. Some of you may remember the Ithaca City School District budget failure and $7 million deficit of 2023. That year helped us all to see how thin the margins of our school budgets are and how little room there is for absorbing budget deficits without directly impacting our students' day-to-day learning experiences. In the 2023-24 school year, our students saw their class sizes increase, they lost beloved educators, and they had to change their schedules and graduation plans at the last minute to accommodate dissolved programs. Today, 2 full school years later, we still live with those larger class sizes, the smaller teaching and support staff, and not a single dissolved program has been restored. In my line of work, I know that the constraints of a single failed budget will be felt for years, since there is no mechanism for schools to recoup these losses unless a new source of school revenue is found within the community. The Southworks proposal does not create new revenue, but instead would create new, additional, and compounding operational costs to the district. These costs would inevitably either result in even larger class sizes, even fewer staff members, even less choice of engaging in diverse curricular programs, or they would result in even higher taxes for individual homeowners to offset these costs. Given that the current ICSD financial projections for this plan indicate that it would create up to $4 million worth of additional per pupil expenditures for every year the abatement is in place, and knowing that any budget deficits compound over time. Is that my whole 3 minutes?
That is your 3 minutes.
I read slowly and clearly so I can give you the entire rest of this
Definitely.
statement. Okay.
Thank you, Kat.
Thank you.
Yep. Next on the list, Wales.
I'm Wales Brown. I live at 206 Eddy Street in College Town, so that's the city of Ithaca. I am a retired educator and a homeowner, and unlike perhaps some of my fellow residents, I do believe in paying taxes and supporting public services by paying taxes. But I would tend to agree with a great deal of what the previous speaker said. I think you should look carefully at this proposal. It is unusual in its extreme length and in some of its provisions. I am very much in favor of providing affordable housing so that people who work in Ithaca have the chance to live in Ithaca also, and save commuting, save driving cars over great distances. I would also say that the IDA should look carefully at the provisions that will run for 30 years, that is far into the future. In connection with affordability, I've recently had occasion to hear about some cases in New York City where affordable rents were suddenly made non-affordable by unexpected decisions of the building owners or landlords. And I would want very much to make sure that no one who begins living in an affordable rent apartment is suddenly faced with the need to pay market rent or get out. Thank you.
Next up, Jill Tripp.
Hello, I'm Jill Tripp. I live in the Ithaca City School District on First Street in Ithaca. I am a member of the Ithaca City School District Board of Education, but I am here speaking tonight not on their behalf. You have, I believe, an excellent and comprehensive letter from the full board that I would urge you to consider carefully. The reason I would urge you to consider it carefully is that I believe it shows that the information you have been provided by the developer is not sufficient to make this scope of a decision on this project. A 30-year tax abatement with approximately or close to 3 generations of school children. That is a lot of people over a lot of time. To go forward when you don't have what you consider to be sufficient numbers to explain exactly how much that will cost the Ithaca City School District and the Ithaca City School District taxpayers would be, in my opinion, irresponsible. You're not irresponsible people. I think you probably have considerably more financial acumen than I do. I'm a school person, not a financial person. And I would urge you to find out what the facts are, not because of our back of the envelope calculations, as one of your writers referred to it, or the developer's calculations. But because those are numbers that can be found out, it is possible to do some research, not necessarily year-long research, but to do some research and find out very close to how many school children, where they would go, and roughly what they would cost over the years of this proposed pilot. Okay. Beyond that, on a more personal note, I will say that I live in an affordable house. It was affordable when I bought it. It's rapidly become less affordable as taxes have become more than my mortgage, predominantly school taxes, some of which I enjoyed as a working school psychologist in a district. So these are real impacts on people that we all know and care about. And I agree with one of the writers that we do not want to pit affordable housing against school budgets. That is a lose-lose situation. I would just ask you not to buy what my grandparents referred to as a pig in a poke. Thank you. And take a careful look at the real numbers that can be found out for this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Next on our list, Peter Whisker.
About some souvenir copies for the board. Because I'm not.
You're always putting it.
Okay, thanks. Make it through the whole thing. My name is Peter Whisker. I live in the city of Ithaca. Let me start by saying this is a great project. We should support it. I urge you to figure out a way to make it work. The question is how to do this best without hurting ourselves in the process, along with applying the lessons of Artus and Asteri when it comes to who will live in the complex. This means coming to terms with the generosity and necessity of the proposed tax abatement. I asked the IDA to hold off voting on the project until you get sufficient information before you decide whether you should be voting to support the developer's requested pilot or not. At this point, there's no schedule for the amount of pilot payments, although you promised it last week, nor is there a discussion in the paperwork of why we should be using this rather than the traditional approach, although I understand that a lot of affordable housing things actually do have 30-year tax abatement runs that use this method, but I'll get to that. The supplied value of the building appears to understate it by 2 or 3 times compared to a cap rate based estimate. And it's at its current estimated value, it's assessed at it's 2/3 the assessed value of Ithaca Art House. This is a problem. By their own estimate, we're talking about $7 million in tax abatements. Without the schedule or pricing, it's hard to get an accurate figure on that. My concern is we're being more generous than is appropriate given the project. I firmly believe we should give this project the help it needs, but not the help it doesn't. We're talking about a company that, according to its application, owns 20,000 rental units, not a small local builder or developer. They see profit in the building, and that's fine, but let it be a fair profit rather than our giving away the proverbial store. We should not be giving them an abatement that's as generous as what we gave to INHS, for example, because they don't need that level of support. Let me address a few issues quickly. According to item 5 in the community benefits memo, suggested pilots calculated based on the first year's net operating income. Even if you buy the idea that the pilot should take this form rather than the traditional one, using year 1 as the basis for the pilot will peg the starting point for the pilot at a lower point than it should be. It will take some months for the building to fill, or maybe more, and we're cheating ourselves if we use year 1. It's a sucker's move to say it's year 1. Everybody knows that. 2, item 5 also states that the pilot payments are meant to increase by 2% annually. How could we agree to this in this environment? Even the Federal Reserve can't hold costs down to 2%. It'll only result in the real value of the payment shrinking over time, even as the value of the property itself increases and the cost to the city, town, and school district grow. 3, I believe the amount of the abatements being dramatically understated. Can you give me like 30 seconds, par favor?
Finish your sentence.
Okay, it's a run, Ellen. Okay, assuming it's hard to tell, if the amount of the assessment is based on the 12.5 as-built assessment of the two tax parcels described in item 5, the calculation of the assessment based on the NOI of the project, which you can calculate from the same paragraph by taking the initial pilot payment divided by 12.5 and using the area as cap rate, well, actually, which is, let's say between 4% and 6%.
Peter,
I'm just about finished, would put the value of the building at closer to 24.1 to $36.2 million rather than the 12 million that is being used to calculate the $7 million figure. Thank you for your extra time.
no, you're good. Thank you, Peter. A point of order, the Tompkins County IDA is not required to publish the 30-year pilot schedule. However, per Peter's request and helping me learn in this role, we have prepared that. I need to work with Ina right after this meeting. It will be published by the end of day tomorrow, just as requested, not required. Next on the list, we have Garrett Blaylock.
Good morning. I'm Garrett Blaylock, City of Ithaca resident. 2 disclosures. Many years ago, as chair of the City of Ithaca Planning and Development Board, I oversaw the environmental review of the Southworks project. So I've spent several years of my life working on this project. I'm very familiar with it and I support it. Second disclosure is I am a member of the Ithaca City School District Board of Education, but I'm speaking here only on my own comments. I heard the chair of this agency say this morning that she disagreed with the numbers that ICSD put forth regarding, for example, the number of students, and those numbers could be wrong. I guess the question I have is, what are the right numbers, and why don't we have the right numbers in front of us? And that is what has been asked for, is what are the right numbers? And I think there may be some pushback and people saying, well, we're too late to the table. I'm too late to the table to ask for those numbers, but I just want to remind this board that the IDA and the Board of Education met to discuss these very issues on December 12th, 2024. I was the chair of that meeting as the finance chair of the school district. It was Rich John who came to visit us. All the questions that are being asked now were asked back in December 2024, not with respect to the specific project, but with respect to Southworks more generally. And all of those questions were submitted in writing by me to the full IDA in December of 2024. Forgive me if I'm missing a document, but I have yet to see answers. And I think the public deserves to see those answers before this important decision is made. I'm not for or against the project. I'm for making an informed decision with properly studied numbers.
Eric. Next, Rich John.
I think I won't finish, so I'm going to give you mine. First, thank you for serving on the IDA. These are important decisions you make. And I come in support of this proposed development at Southworks. As you know, I sat on that table and voted in support of moving this project forward to get this derelict property back on our tax rolls. This was the biggest project any of us had voted on. And we spent a substantial amount of time studying this. We hired consultants. We held multiple public hearings. We sought input from the school district repeatedly. They never came, but we can relitigate that, but it wasn't for lack of trying. We did tours, we had public events. We did our homework. And we ended up with this structure somebody asked about. The purpose of that was the IDA, as it was constituted then, could have voted on the whole project. And we said that's an exercise of too much power. New York State certainly gave us the authority to do that, but we said, no, we want to make sure that these projects meet the time when they're actually getting built and that they're examined in that way. So I think this is a healthy process we're in right now, but it's got to move forward. It's very easy to say you support affordable housing. Everybody does, right? But it's ugly how it gets built. And yes, taxpayers subsidize it. That's the only way it will happen. And if you want the affordable housing for 30 years, you need a 30-year pilot. Otherwise, the developer doesn't have to rent it as affordable anymore. That's the structure. And beyond all that, this is a great project. It's worthy of support because of the environmental cleanup. It's certainly worthy of support from the standpoint of jobs, job training, economic revitalization, and creating a brand new neighborhood in our community. With appropriate covenants on management of affordable housing, I think this is a good and necessary improvement. And we should build this, or Beacon should build it. I decided to come and speak with you after reading the news report about the letter from the ICSD. I did go speak to the Finance Committee back in 24, and there were lots of questions raised. I think those are questions that are within the purview of the school board. They are supposed to be doing the forecasting on student needs and what the community demographics are going to be. And in fact, they did do a study. I believe they had consultants report to them this January. And enrollment has gone down dramatically over the last decade and is forecasted to go down even more. They have answers. So done.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Again, all submitted comments will be posted online as part of this packet. Is there anyone in this room who has not yet spoken but wishes to? To anyone online? Does not look like it.
It is not filmed. That's why I'm here. It's not live.
We're having some technical issues, but the recording will be posted right after this meeting. So yes.
Can't be online.
Do you want to speak?
No,
Oh,
just wanted to listen.
okay. Okay. Well, that being said, the time is now 11:38. This hearing's been held open since 11 to allow for public comment on application. This meeting is now closed. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I did.
Wow.
But I